Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Ethereum, and we're just going to be looking at the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio. So if you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. Also, check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Again, we'll start this video simply looking at the 20-month moving average of Ether Bitcoin. And this was one of those moving averages that we talked about at the beginning of the year. For about 5 months straight, we talked about this moving average. We stopped talking about it because we left it and it was no longer relevant. But now we have come back down to it, and we're just going to keep an eye on it yet again. The reason we talk about it is, well, we know historically speaking, during a bull market, it is held as support a couple times, right? And during a bear market, once we broke this, we broke it here in 2018. Once we broke through this, we did not get back above it until February of 2020. It was about 18 months or so, about a year and a half. And I suppose I could just take a measured move to get exactly how long it was. So it was about 19 months between breaking it and then coming up to it and testing it the first time. So from here to here was 19 months. We did not get back above it for 2 years. So 24 months before we got above it. And the reason we talked about it in January and February and March and April was because, we saw where it was. And in February, we tested it, right? We tested it right here on that wick. And then in March, we tested it. And we kept saying, once we get above it, we should start flying, right? The Ether Bitcoin valuations should start flying whenever we get above it. We came back up to it. No go, again, no go, again, no go. So 5 months in a row, 5 tests of the 20-month kept getting hit back down. And then in July, we finally moved above it. And we moved above it fairly explosively. And over these 2 months, 3 months really, Ether pumped about 66% against Bitcoin. Now, since then, it has come all the way back down, and we are sitting back at the 20-month moving average of the Ether Bitcoin ratio. Now, if you're curious where it is, it's currently at 0.0251. So that's where you want to keep an eye out on. The Ether Bitcoin valuation of 0.0251. We've already been below it in the last couple days. We went down to 0.0241. But again, this is, so far, it's just nothing more than a wick. It's not like we're closing below it. Now, of course, we do have another 6 days to go before we can say we've closed above it. And there's a chance we close below it. So we're still in the same scenario that we've been in for the last 3 or 4 months. We know that Ethereum tends to bleed against Bitcoin in Q4. It's done it all 5 years before this year. This is year 6. It tends to bleed in Q4. All 3 major moves that occurred in January. So let's just go back and look at all the major moves. So this one occurred in January. This one started in January. And the 2 things that were interesting about this one is both of them starting in January, and they were also accompanied by a Bitcoin bull market. The one that started in December, as we noted before, was when the party was almost over. So the Bitcoin party had ended, and then this rally started in December. And then the next year, the rally also started in December when we were still in a bear market. This past year, in January, you can see it started in January, not December. And in January, let's go see what Bitcoin was doing in January of 2020. Well, we had just gotten above the 20-week moving average, so back in bull market mode. Now, the first thing one caveat I want to say to all this is we have been discussing this trend for the last 3 months. We discussed it last year. Last year, we got lucky, and we saw it turn around in January, right? You guys probably remember us talking about it endlessly about 12 months ago, 13 months ago. We got lucky. It worked out. It does not necessarily mean it has to work out this year. As I've always said, there's no free lunch. We just look at the data. We look at the trends. We make somewhat dubious extrapolations of those trends to help inform our decisions. But at the end of the day, the market's going to do whatever the hell the market wants to do. And in order for us to see Ether turn around against Bitcoin, we need to see Bitcoin volatility reduce. If Bitcoin volatility does not reduce, then we likely will not see a major breakout of Ether against Bitcoin. you can kind of sense it wanting to break out. You know, if you go recently, let's switch over to say, let's go to a different one. Let's look at Bitcoin USD on Bitstamp, and we'll take a look at the hourly candles. Okay, so we're gonna look at hourly candles and remove this and remove this, remove that, and we'll auto this out. So over the last week or so since December 17th, Bitcoin has more or less been range bound up until today. Okay, it was more or less just coming in here. It had local tops at around 24.3 and bottoms that more or less bottomed out at around 22.2. Some of them bottomed up higher before turning back around. And this was going on for over a week, right? More or less just range bound. Bitcoin not really doing a whole lot of anything except moving sideways above the 20-week moving average. And during this time, we started to see a move by Ether against Bitcoin. You can see on December 24th, we started to make a move, and in fact, Ether from it had a wick all the way down here to 0.024. We did a live stream during this. This did occur. You could have bought Bitcoin, or you could have bought Ether all the way down here. Ether had basically a pretty quick crash all the way down to 550. From that point, Ether rallied against Bitcoin 8% over just about a day or so. So it's there. It's just that Bitcoin decided to start rallying again. And if you look at the hour, this is December 25th at 11 o'clock. Let's go see what happened with Bitcoin December 25th at 11 o'clock. Okay, so we're going to go to 1 hour candles. We're going to, let's remove all these drawings. We'll auto this, then we're going to zoom in. Okay, so December 25th at 11 o'clock. What happened with Bitcoin at that time? Well, Bitcoin broke above, more or less, right? If this was our prior top, this was the top of the candle right here. At 11 o'clock, Bitcoin broke above its prior range-bound area. Okay, so it was pretty much range-bound in there. Bitcoin volatility took it back above, and we set a new all-time high. And it looks like the new all-time high is around 24,664 or so. And it depends on, again, what exchange you use. But Bitcoin set a new all-time high. It broke out of this range-bound region, and it continued its move. And because of that, again, if you go back and look at Ether Bitcoin, the valuation came back down. So Ether wanted to trend up against Bitcoin, and it was doing so. But then Bitcoin said, hold up, I'm still the king, right? Still the master of the market. Bitcoin controls the market. Bitcoin said, hold up a second, we're not done yet. And it pushed higher. And because Bitcoin pushed higher, it again takes the spotlight essentially away from everything else. And people just continue watching Bitcoin. But you can see it there. You can see Ether really wanting to break out against Bitcoin. But as I said before, until Bitcoin volatility drops and we start moving sideways, it's probably just not going to happen. And one of the main questions is, well, what if Bitcoin tests the 20-week first, right? What if Bitcoin has to crash first? That's a possibility, and don't discount it as a possibility. It could be that Bitcoin tests the 20-week moving average again before Ether will break out against Bitcoin in a sustainable manner. This is a possibility, and you guys know the deal, right? And you guys know the deal. If Bitcoin retests the 20-week moving average, which today is at around 14.5, in a couple weeks it'll probably be around 16K. Whenever it does test it, if it does, and Ether still has not broken out against Bitcoin, then rest assured there's a high probability that in the short term, Ether would correct with Bitcoin and probably even correct harder than Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin tests the 20-week moving average before Ether breaks out against Bitcoin, Ether will pull back against USD and against Bitcoin more than likely. We do know there have been plenty of times in the past when it took Bitcoin coming back down and testing the 20-week moving average before Ether broke out. Right? This has happened many times. If we go back and look at the weekly chart and we put on our bull market support. So here was an example of, let's just look at a few examples here. So Bitcoin in January, in December of 2015, it had a major move. And then in January, it came back down to test the 20-week moving average as support in January. What was Ether doing at the time? Well, in December of 2015, Ether was going down. And then in January, Ether started to break out against Bitcoin. So it broke out once Bitcoin's move was over and Bitcoin started to trend down. However, we know that in the event of a very sudden crash, right, if Bitcoin has a very sudden crash, as we saw yesterday, if Bitcoin starts bleeding pretty quickly, the rest of the market will likely overreact to it. But when they do overreact, there's a good probability that they'll then bounce right back up. Maybe not to as high as where they were before, but they can move back up relatively quickly from wherever the local bottom is. So there's really no way to sugarcoat it. Of course, Ether will trend down against Bitcoin as long as Bitcoin, continues pushing to higher highs and extending its reach in complete price discovery mode. Until there's any indication there that that's over, Ether will likely not break out against Bitcoin. And we saw that over the last week, about 7-8 days, Bitcoin was trending sideways. Ether had more of like a capitulation a couple days ago against Bitcoin, and then it was trending back up. And then Bitcoin said, I'm taking the show back. So that's more or less where we are. We still have around six days or so before Q1 gets here. And we know that Q1, historically speaking, has been really good for Ether. If you look at the 90-day ROI, it tends to be pretty good if you're buying Ether at the end of the year on average. It does not mean there's a guarantee that you'll see a positive 90-day ROI from here. It just means that on average, buying Bitcoin in December buying Ether in December tends to work out fairly well in terms of a 90-day ROI. It does not always mean it will work out. It's just looking at data and looking at, the chances of it working out seem to be pretty high. But again, there's no free lunch. If it were that easy, if it were always that easy, then the market would be more efficient than it currently is. So hopefully this video has been useful. We'll continue to track Ether, see where it is. You can see right now it's at 620 or so. So in terms of USD, it's doing okay. Again, we're better than that. We want to track it. We want to track it in terms of its Bitcoin valuation. And again, I'm very bullish on Ether, very bullish on a few other coins. But Bitcoin, as I've said before, is the king, and that's where I'll have the majority of my money within crypto, is because you see what happens. When Bitcoin is bullish or very bearish, it tends to control the market. There's only a few times when the rest of the market will take off, and usually that's when Bitcoin is very bullish and moving sideways. And until that happens, it's likely not looking good for most cryptocurrencies against Bitcoin. So if you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel. Give the video a thumbs up. Also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. And remember, we also have the premium list. If you want to check out the holiday sale, you can get access to that. Just check out the link in the description below. Make sure you sign up before the prices go up. You get access to the weekly reports, the weekly premium videos, the risk dashboard, the trading view indicators, the alerts channel on Telegram, the Telegram chat room, and a few other things. We're going to be doing even more things next year in 2021 with it. So make sure you guys check that out. Please subscribe. Let's get to 80,000 subscribers. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.